haaretz.com. Jews and Arabs share a genetic link to ancient Canaanites. Study finds. Today's Jews and Arabs in Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and parts of Syria get half their ancestry from Bronze Age Levantines, who descended from a mix of locals and migrants from Iran or the Caucasus. Just showing what Canaanites look like. Canaanite sarcophagi. Most of today's Jewish and Arabic-speaking populations share a strong genetic link to the ancient Canaanites. A study by an international team of archaeologists and geneticists has found these modern-day groups in Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and parts of Syria share a large part of their ancestry, and in most cases more than half, with the people who lived in the Levant during the Bronze Age more than 3,000 years ago, the study concludes. The researchers also determined that the Canaanites, who frequently appear in ancient sources, including the Bible, descended from a mixture of an earlier Levantine population and migrants coming from the Caucasus region or northwestern Iran. In the wide-ranging study published Thursday in the journal Cell, experts analyzed genetic material from dozens of skeletons found at Canaanite sites across Israel and neighboring countries, and compared it to the genomes of other ancient populations as well as to modern-day groups. This study, quote, "This study suggests there is a deep genetic connection of many Jewish groups across the diaspora and many Arab groups to this part of the world thousands of years ago," says David Reich, a Harvard University geneticist and one of the world's top experts in the study of ancient DNA. Biblical hyperbole. The land of Canaan and its inhabitants are mentioned in documents from the 2nd millennium BCE, before Common Era, such as the Amarna letters, an archive of ancient Egyptian correspondence between the pharaohs and their colonial empire in the Levant. The Bible describes the Canaanites as the inhabitants of the Holy Land before the Israelites conquered it following their exodus from Egypt. Researchers taking samples at Megiddo to study Canaanite DNA wearing protective gear to prevent contamination of the samples, credit Israel Finkelstein Megiddo expedition. The text also claims that the arriving Israelites destroyed all that breathed, Joshua 10, verse 40, and exterminated the Canaanites during the conquest of land. This is not borne out by most archaeological and biblical scholarship over the last decades, which suggests that the story of the conquest, like most of the Bible, was written much later than the events it purports to relate. As archaeologist Ann Killebrew wrote in her 2005 book, Biblical Peoples and Ethnicity, quote, "Almost without exception, scholars agree that the account in Joshua holds little historical value vis-a-vis early Israel. Instead, it now seems more likely that between the end of the Bronze Age and early Iron Age, that is just over 3,000 years ago, Canaanite culture slowly evolved and morphed into that of the various peoples that are familiar to any reader of the Bible: the Israelites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, and so on. One partial exception to this model would be the Philistines, who appear to have at least some Southern European ancestry." Let's see what Canaanites look like. Canaanites. All right, so this is a Canaanite. This is an Egyptian wall painting. What's interesting is that people from that region still pretty much, oh boy, no, cookies, whatever, cookies. People from the region still look, the same. They still have this, what people describe as Middle Eastern look. You see DJ Khaled. Show up. Come on. Here we go. DJ Khaled. Same type of look. Let's see. Right. Nope. This is Rahi Jews. See, these are your Middle Eastern type Jews. Let's see. Like her. Like him. In particular, like them. And like him. The Jerusalem Post. The invention of Arab Jews erases Mizrahi Jewish history. Opinion. See him. The history of Jews in the Middle East and North Africa is rich, yet it is often let's see, what does it say? Let's see. It is often the history of the Jews in the Middle East and North Africa is rich. It is often omitted from the main discourse of Jewish history. Anti-Zionists, who rarely care about Mizrahi Jews, take advantage of the lack of knowledge and try to rewrite our history for their own agenda. They are doing so by pushing a narrative of Arab Jews who were brought to Israel as second-class citizens just to have their Arab culture stripped away. While you might find a handful of Mizrahi Jews who do identify as, quote, Arab Jews, end quote, the term itself is historically inaccurate and is rejected by the overwhelming majority of Mizrahi Jews. The history of Jews in the Arab region that goes back over 2,500 years to the Babylonian exile, after which the center of Jewish life shifted outside of the land of Israel for the first time in history. The presence of Jews in what is now known as Iraq predates the Arab conquest of the region by some 1,200 years, or 1,200 years. So this guy here is someone from that area. So when did Jews become Arabs? It is only because of the Arab imperial rule that the Jewish communities of the Middle East and North Africa suddenly changed their ethnic identity. And what does it say about other indigenous groups who live in the region, such as the Assyrians, the Copts, and the Amazigh tribes, who have struggled to maintain their unique identity under Islamic rule and do not identify with the Arab culture? The same logic should be applied to Jews who, under harsh conditions, preserve their indigenous culture and An Al Jazeera article published in 2017 falsely claimed Jews in Arab cultures spoke Arabic, ate the same foods as their Christian and Muslim compatriots, celebrated the same national events and traditions, and lived by the same social protocols. Truth be told, Jews in Arab and Muslim countries, truth be told, Jews in Arab and Muslim societies kept their Jewish identity while not consider themselves Arabs, but rather Iraqi Jew, Moroccan Jew, Egyptian Jew, etc. This distinction is made clear in early Islamic writings, which refer to Jewish tribes of the Hijaz, Saudi Arabia, as foreigners, whereas the Christian Arab tribes were considered as fellow Arabs.